And to be honest, although they are slightly behind because they haven't really got any of their true leaves. Oh, there's a couple. Oh, down here there's a few that have got some true leaves coming through. Up this end, maybe not so much. Maybe this end gets less water or less sun. But they aren't that far behind that lot over there. And I did find that a lot of the ones underneath the planks did not actually germinate. So there's a lot more space. But then again, maybe that's good because I know that I've planted way too many in and that they're going to seriously need thinning out. So maybe that was a natural way of them thinning out. So here is a leek that I need to harvest because it looks like it's about to go to seed. Oh, and this one here. So my leeks didn't get very big. So these are leeks that were planted last year, which basically, because they weren't growing very big, I thought maybe they need more time, so I left them in there. So I need to harvest them. So chicken and leek pie this week, I think. And as always, you might have seen I haven't mentioned it on my way round, but as always, around every single bed I've got nasturtium growing. So the nasturtium, and I germinated some of those in the conservatory and brought them out as young plants and put them into the beds. But I've also got some seeds. So now that it's warmed up a bit, I will direct sow in the gaps as well. Especially if I'm going to be harvesting the leek, because I can put some more nasturtium all the way around these beds. I'm just thinking I should have checked. Yeah, no, I can see from here that the one at the very end here is also looking like it's going to go to seed. So yeah, so it's time to harvest all of those before they all go to seed, because I'm sure their taste will change as soon if they have gone to seed. So hopefully I'll have a lovely colourful border to all of my beds, because it's going to have far more nasturtium in it than it's ever had before. Right, what else have we got going in this area? So the two blue barrels. So the two blue barrels have got onions in them. This side is white onions, that side is red onions. The red onions actually didn't do well from last year, so I left some in there and they've gone to seed. So hopefully, I'm just going to leave them in there because I'm hoping I'll be able to... Oh, sorry, Mr. B. Oh, look. Always welcome in the garden. So what I'm hoping is that even though these onions didn't do brilliantly in my garden... Sorry, I'm following them around. I'm hoping you can see, because I can't actually see what you're looking at. Even though... I've got a whispering now. Even though these onions didn't do well in the garden, as I'd hoped, I'm hoping, because they managed to last and to germinate, to go to seed here, that actually if I collect the seeds, they are now used to my environment, and hopefully that will mean that next lot of onion will be more hardy for this particular garden. Let's say goodbye to the bee. Goodbye, Mr. B. Right, so what else have I got? Well, I've got an empty bed here, and I've got the same empty bed over there. Last year they had that one had my carrots in, and one was a herb bed last year. So this year they will be dedicated to bush squash, so your courgettes. Yeah, sorry, I'm thinking as I'm walking around. Yeah, they will be dedicated to my bush squash. I have got that squash going on in the other bed, in the other area. I did show you one long bed which had been created and said that that was going to be for squash and peppers. There was a mirrored bed on the other side of the boats that also is for squash, probably bush squash, because I think my trailing squash will probably be over here. So this is the extension on the vegetable garden. So this did not exist last year at all. So what we've got is we've got one long bed along the front. We literally had the old bed that was being used as a compost heap. So that has turned into a raised bed. And then we have one bed either side and then another long bed along the back. So the long bed at the back and the long bed at the front have had the topsoils topped with compost and have been planted. The long bed at the front, I direct sowed some yellow chard at that end, some pink chard at this end, and some spinach all the way along the front. Now, I have no idea how this is going to go. It's a shady area over here because it's underneath the willow tree. So I have absolutely no idea if I'm going to be able to grow anything over here. However, if I'm going to grow anything, it's going to be something that doesn't appreciate the heat of the summer. So I thought if I'm going to do anything, it might as well be a leafy thing over here. So it's a trial and error. This area is a big learning curve for me this year. So the big learning curve is, can I grow leafy stuff in the summer under the shade of the willow tree? Is that the best use of this area? These beds here are going to be my final year, my third year of trying to grow corn. I have failed every other year. This year I am growing them in squares. I am growing them with beans. I've got my dwarf beans going in here with the corn, plus trailing squash. So that's the three sisters. You've got the corn, the beans, and the squash. So they're meant to be the best companions for each other. So that's what I've got planned for these beds here. And then I've got some more climbing squash, trailing squash, because I've got a lot of squash going into this bed here. This bed at the back here is my brassica bed. So I'm not very good with brassicas, I've discovered. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I haven't got the patience, whether I plant it in the wrong place, whether I really just don't know what I'm doing with the brassicas. All I do know is that my chickens absolutely adore brassica leaves. It is their absolute favourite. So we don't really eat cauliflower in this family. We do eat broccoli. I do love broccoli. We're not really huge cabbage fans, but we will eat the odd cabbage. And him indoors does not like Brussels sprouts at all. I do. So I failed miserably with the Brussels sprouts last year. The cauliflower, I have no idea what I did wrong with the cauliflower. The broccoli, so-so. The cabbages were fine. So I thought, right, this year I'm just going to give this entire bed out to the brassicas, because they do grow massive and they take up such a huge amount of space. And so I thought, and they tend to, well, when I see them growing in other people's houses, they grow like a massive cabbage. and they have this whole body to them. When they grow in my garden, they go leggy and long, and then they fall over, and I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. If you know, please put a comment below and tell me what is it I'm doing wrong with my brassicas. Anyway, what I thought was, this area here has never been used. I have planted it out with brassicas. I have multi-sown brassicas at the back very early on, and then I have planted out some individual ones at the front. I thought that the ones at the back might actually get eaten, and they didn't, which I was surprised about. I don't know whether that's because it's a new bed and the slugs had no idea it was here, or whether it's because I bordered it with the straw, and so the slugs just haven't crossed the straw in order to get to it. But anyway, apart from this one plant here at the end seems to have got a little bit of damage, but the rest, no damage showing whatsoever. But I thought, if I've got them here, then what I can do is if they get leggy and start to flop over, I can just tie some string here round them and then attach it to the other side and hold them up, and that would hold them, the big ones, up against the wall. And then I've planted the cabbage at the front row so that I can hold them back and still give room and light to the cabbage beneath them or in front of them. That's the plan. Let's roll on like a couple of months, maybe a little bit further, and see how it did. It's gonna be interesting. This whole area here is gonna be interesting, because either it's gonna desperately fail because the willow tree casts far too much shade over it, or it's gonna be a semi-success, or it's gonna be a great success. Whatever it is, I'm gonna learn from it. Okay, so that is this side of the bed of the vegetable garden. There's just, I hate to bring that here to this area because it's so messy, but there's also a little bit more. So okay, so let's get far enough back. So the garden is an L shape, so it starts over here against the pergola and it goes along the front where our parking area is over there. It goes along there and then it L's across here. It used to end there and we've extended it this year to there, and then along that very back fence over there is Chicken Run. So I have a new fence that runs from the corner of the Chicken Run all the way along the front here. This obviously was here before, to here, but along this fence here I've planted more peas. Nothing like you can't get enough peas, and I've still got some in the conservatory. So I have dwarf peas growing along the front here. I thought if I kept them dwarf, then they might give me a nice little hedge of colour and peas, but it's not a hugely tall fence here. It's only about 4.5 foot, so they wouldn't need to grow up and beyond there, and they hopefully wouldn't cast much of a shadow. But it goes this way anyway. The sun goes that way, so if the sun went the other way, they would cast a shadow, but the sun goes that way and they go that way, so it shouldn't cast a shadow. Just checking, because obviously I'm going to use this to refer back to next year, and I'm just having a look around to see if I've forgotten anything inside the vegetable patch. Note to self that the first lot of peas, dwarf peas that I planted, that go from that corner to the gate and from the other side of the gate to the end of the original bed, are larger than the peas that are underneath the willow tree. So I think they probably won't grow. I think we're pretty much there. So that's inside the vegetable garden. Outside the vegetable garden I had to move the trees because I needed the space for the tomatoes this year. So again, I've put the trees in pots. They've been in pots ever since I bought them because I didn't know where I was going to be planting them. This is the Melba, which is still Medlar. This is the Medlar, which again this year has come into some beautiful blossoms. Hopefully this year I might actually catch some of the fruit. Last year, no, I think the birds got it. I'm feeling a bit sorry for the cherry tree. No, that's the plum tree. Because I don't know what happened, but it is gone on the wonk. So I'm going to have to see to that and get that straightened up a bit. This is the cherry tree. This one here. So that, I gave it a really strong water yesterday because it looked like it's suffering. It still looks like it's maybe not 100%, but it's got, we're second, third week in March now, and it's got some cherries on it. But last year we did this and we had some cherries on it, and it had like a first lot of cherries and they began to ripen. Then we got some aphids on the tree and they all fell off. And then we got a second lot of cherries and they grew beautiful and red. Just about to, I'm just watching, one of my chickens has escaped the bed. Escaped her run and is going around my garden. I have a couple of chickens that are allowed to be in the garden. Basically they're a little bit more vulnerable than the other chickens, and so they're separated. But I have one red chicken and she thinks she owns the place and she's out every single day. She just goes straight over. So far she hasn't caused any damage, touch wood. So, and she'll help herself into the house as well. Anyway, back to the garden. So our final tree, which I forgot when we were over here earlier, is the fig. So that's here. And for all intents and purposes, I have no idea anything about figs. I just would love a fig tree. I'd love some figs if it produces any figs. I might have to move it underneath the pergola. That has been a consideration of mine. It gets really nice and hot in there. It's not the same as having it in a greenhouse, but I haven't got a greenhouse big enough for a tree. And the conservatory, probably not the best place for a tree either. So I've considered maybe I need to move it underneath the pergola. But anyway, look at those beautiful leaves. Yeah, it's a very attractive plant. It really is. I think that pretty much draws my vegetable garden to a close. I do have the herb patch, the herb wall, but it's very messy over there because Brian's tools are all over there, and yeah. So this is my patio. We had a barbecue. Brian's been working, so there's a lot of his tools and stuff. I've also left a load of stuff there that I was working on. Oh, let's just say hello to Myrtle and Hagrid. Myrtle and Hagrid, are you going to say hello to the camera? These are my two silkies, fluffy silkies. They're 16 weeks old and they get picked on a lot, or they're very, very scared of the other chickens. So because they're scared, they make a fuss, and because they make a fuss, the other chickens do pick on them. So we're keeping them apart from the others. This is Perky, out of Pinky and Perky, and she flies over, she jumps over once a day, has a look around, bit of a rummage around, and then goes back again. She's no trouble.